The devs of Subnautica have said that Subnautica 2 will not contain any of the same creatures or vehicles from either of the previous games. That means no Cyclops, no Sea Truck, no Seamoth, and no prawn suit. But they are pretty much bringing the prawn suit back in the form of a chassis for the tadpole, as hinted by the devs in their latest devlog, as well as data miners having found files for it in the game already.
Add a new chassis that brings back one of the most requested player experiences. So get ready to get stompy.
That being said though, there are a whole load of item references to things from Subnautica 1 and Below Zero in Subnautica 2. This video doesn't include things like the fabricator or nutrition blocks for example, as although they are from the previous games, it would very quickly become a very mundane video if I also include all of the standard Altera items. Hi, I'm Ray. I'm pretty new to making YouTube videos, and if you're into original Subnautica 2 content, both in the form of long videos and shorts that aren't brought to you by an overly excited shouting grown man, then you should totally consider hitting that sub button. Anyway, let's get straight to it. First, we have the Reaper Leviathan statue, which is a depiction of a big 55 meter long Leviathan from Subnautica 1. This guy is probably the first aggressive Leviathan you see in the game, and the indicator to most people diving into Subnautica for the first time that this game isn't going to be your cozy little water Minecraft. Instead, you're greeted by this roaring monster that grabs your Seamoth just to roar in your face. Originally, this item was a reward for buying the game in its launch week, however, it was made free for everyone no matter when you bought the game, after receiving over 5 million wishlists on Steam. This is one that can be built at any time in the game, there's no need to find a blueprint. Just pull out your habitat builder, and for the cheap price of 1 titanium, you can have a fond memory of Subnautica 1 to enjoy. Next, and one that's drawn some controversy lately, is the Seamoth display. This decorative item is also a reference to Subnautica 1, being the trusty medium-sized vehicle you get your hands on, typically within the first hour or two of playing the game, just like the tadpole in Subnautica 2. However, obtaining the display isn't so simple. This decorative piece was a limited time pre-release item the devs gave away during their Twitch livestream a week before the game's release. It's currently not available anymore, but the good news is they have promised they will bring it back at some point, so if you missed it the first time, turn notifications on for this channel and I'll be sure to hit you with a reminder when it's back again. Now, with those out of the way, we can move on to the in-game items that aren't dependent on any outside factors. First off, we have a bunch of craftable posters that were references to the first game, and to begin, we have the Keep Calm Cat poster. A poster that was found in the Aurora in the first game. It's practically identical to the one we saw in Subnautica 1, but with the graphical fidelity we would expect from Subnautica 2 and the Unreal Engine. This poster was mine and a lot of other people's go-to comfort poster, as it helped calm people's nerves in the depths of 4546b, which by the way is the planet the first game takes place on. There are multiple locations where this poster can be found, one of which can be found going 300 meters southwest from the life pod, right by the Great Jaw. There's a wreck, and inside there you can find the poster. Then you can freely create it in your base as many times as you want, unlike the first game where it was more of a collectible, one-time item. Then we have another cat poster called the Just Keep Swimming poster. While it's not directly from Subnautica 1, this one is clearly inspired by the Keep Calm poster and can be found at the other wreck near the Great Jaw. We have one more craftable poster, but this time it's a poster that references an infamous location in Subnautica 1, being the Lost River, the cave system that was used to travel around 1,700 meters deep towards the core of 4546b. In this cave system, there was a whole load of scary creatures and leviathans, but the most fear-inducing, purely from an imagination point of view, was the remains of the gargantuan Leviathan, a over 1 kilometer long behemoth whose skull and bones can still be found in the Lost River. This poster also shows the same skull, and interestingly has a Seamoth and a diver, who I can only presume to be Riley, the character you play as in Subnautica 1 at the bottom. In that location that's being referenced in this poster, in Subnautica 1, there's usually a juvenile ghost Leviathan, but in this poster, sadly, we don't get to see that. A quick fun fact about this poster, it looks very similar to another poster in Below Zero, but that one was of a sea dragon Leviathan. I'm unsure if they were both created by the same artist, so if any of you guys know, please do tell me in the comments. Finally, to get this item, you don't actually have to do anything, it's just like the Reaper Leviathan statue in the fact that it's auto-unlocked, so just pull out your builder tool and you should be able to build it. Finally, there's one more poster to mention, and it's a reference to Subnautica 1 and Below Zero this time. This one isn't craftable, but it can be found in the Cicada wreck near the alien generator, 1,800 meters east of the life pod. and it's of Margarite, who was spoken about in the voice logs in the first game, and she was a mercenary that came with the Degassi ship that was shot down before the events of Subnautica 1.
You see, Chief? You brought us to this sodden planet. Told us we'd see a lush payday. Now what do we got some 6 weeks later? A dead crew, a habitat that's half buried, food washed away.
She also returns as the only human NPC that we see and interact with in the franchise in Below Zero, having now made the Arctic environment her new home after drifting there over the void in a Reaper Leviathan carcass.
Stop right there, Altera. You're out of bounds.
I'm not with Altera.
Then your position is doubly precarious.
As a little side note, by the way, in this same room where the Margarite poster is, you can find an unscannable Keep Calm cat poster. Also in this area, and many of the other wrecks in this game, you can see what looks to be some sort of debris in the water. More of like a particle effect thing, but maybe I'm going crazy, but it looks so much like a peeper, which was the mascot fish in Subnautica 1. And now the final reference item, which isn't a poster by the way, and one I find to be the most interesting, is the Rosetta Stone, which is an architect structure located in Proteus. The architects were the mysterious aliens from the first 2 games that were technologically superior species to humans, and to give the cliff notes, they are the reason that Aurora crashed into 4546b, due to this big gun that they created called the Quantum Enforcement Platform that shot down anything trying to leave the planet, or in the case of the Aurora, anything going near the planet. Their species was assumed to be wiped out by the Kara virus, the thing that we cured in the first game a long time ago. However, in Below Zero, we help reconstruct one of them called Alan.
We can come back to this.
And interestingly, Alan isn't sure if there are any of his species still left, but we know that the Rosetta Stone was constructed around 250 years ago, while the architects finding 4546b is presumed to have been around 1000 years ago.
What will we find when we get there?
If I am the last of my kind, I will experience the sorrow of 10,000 souls dimming.
This could potentially hint at the survival of the architects outside of Alan, though I wouldn't put too much faith in that theory. As the PDA concludes, it was likely built by the Axum rather than the architects, though that isn't explicitly confirmed, just a presumption the PDA made. We are then also warned to keep an eye out for architect activity. This means we're left with a few different possibilities. However, one that I think is the most interesting, if not the most likely, is that it was perhaps visited by Alan, who might be the last or one of the last of his race, and was therefore unable to get together enough resources to help the World Tree. However, given his experience with humans and their ability to cure the Kara on 4546b, he forcefully enlisted the Cicada to help Proteus, the same way Riley did in Subnautica 1. Anyway, this Rosetta Stone does look a little similar to the Quarantine Enforcement Platform, though it obviously isn't one, being like way too small. It instead allows humans to learn the Axum language, as humanity already deciphered the Architect language in 4546b. And there we have it, that's every item in the game that refers to things from the previous games. There are also a bunch of audio logs, but I chose not to include them in this video just to keep it strictly to physical objects in the game world. Things did get quite lore heavy towards the end there, as well as super speculative towards the future developments of the game, and I'm by no means a lore expert, so do feel free to correct me or add anything to what I've said in the comments below. Until next time, happy diving.